Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the 10 o'clock news on KPAX, Montana's news leader.
Good evening, I'm Jill Valley.
And I'm Dennis Bragg. The future for a homeless man who died last week was getting brighter before hypothermia set in. His daughter is hoping for change.
MTN's Augusta McDonald says so are those working on homelessness in Missoula.
61-year-old Tim Lloyd secured a housing voucher just a week or so before he died sleeping outside. The Union Gospel Mission held a service for him. Lloyd had been a member of their community for about a dozen years. His daughter and people from Havre, where he's from, sang Amazing Grace alongside the people Lloyd had been living alongside with homeless.
I have great memories of him as a kid. He left when I was probably 10 when my parents got divorced because he had a problem, and I think he wanted to hide it from people, and he disappeared for 20 years.
She reconnected with him in Missoula about 8 years ago, where he was no stranger at UGM. She worked for years to secure his housing.
Being close is bitter. Being close to that maybe happening is bitter, but there's nothing bitter about reconnecting with him and being with him these last few years.
Tim Lloyd's situation represents what about 15% of Missoula's homeless population deals with. Those that are considered chronically homeless can live on the streets even for decades. These long stays on the street are costing human lives and taxpayer dollars.
That 15% makes up the majority of emergency room visits, jail. You know, it's very costly to for that population to remain in homelessness. So part of what we looked at as a system, as a homeless system, is what are the barriers to helping this population?
Multiple agencies in Missoula are a part of redesigning and launching a new coordinated entry system. It's been in effect for several months.
It's no longer, I am from this agency and I have my caseload behind me that I have to house. It is, we have one caseload now as a community, and we're literally going through, based on vulnerability, how are we going to help this person obtain housing and income and the supportive services that they need.
Although this work to end homelessness has caught a second wind, Williams says meeting survival needs with services like UGM's recently opened warming shelter is critical.
We can only end chronic homelessness by shifting the system and prioritizing our limited resources to the most vulnerable, those that are most likely to die in our streets.
Housing was out of reach late in the course of Tim Lloyd's life, but his daughter hopes for change.
They're not just nameless people out there, and I think that's kind of the first step, is to communicate that to the community so they don't see it as just a transient problem.
She says even though her father lived on the streets, he mattered, and he had a community of family and friends, old and new, who loved him. Reporting in Missoula, I'm Augusta McDonald for MTN News.
An overnight warming shelter is open every night at Union Gospel Mission and will continue to operate throughout the winter. Speaking of the cold, our next weather system is starting to move in, bringing some unsettled condition. Let's check in with Chief Meteorologist Aaron Yost now for the latest. Aaron.
Yeah, we are going to see a cold front move through western Montana throughout the day tomorrow from the northwest to the southeast, bringing with it obviously some moisture and cooler temperatures, wind as well. This was Hamilton today, our first Security Bank iCam. We did see some gray skies, but we also saw a fair amount of sunshine, more than we've seen, I feel like, in the last several days. But right now that is changing. We've got that precipitation literally knocking on the door, just about moving over the border there from Idaho into western Montana. We do have a newly issued winter weather advisory, this out for the West Glacier region, beginning at midnight tonight until 3 p.m. on Thursday. I've got more details coming up in your full forecast.
In other news tonight, police say a medical problem may be the reason a guest started shooting a gun in a Missoula hotel.
Missoula Police Sergeant Travis Welsh says the man called 911 to report that he had shot at people who he thought were trying to kill him inside the Doubletree Hotel on East Broadway. The man told police that people had been speaking to him through the second-story wall. Fortunately, there was no one in the adjacent rooms and the man surrendered peacefully. Police recovered a small caliber handgun which appeared to have been fired. Officers do not believe anyone was trying to hurt the man.
In Helena, some votes on bills for the special session, but still no agreement on Montana's budget crisis. The Senate approved a bill taking $30 million from from the Workmen's Compensation Insurance Fund, although the move might not pass the House. But both the House and Senate agreed to a bill enacting $75 million in spending cuts as outlined by Governor Bullock. However, Democrats say there should have been action to ease cuts impacting service programs for the poor and disabled. Also, the Senate approved a bill blocking an administrative rule making it easier for transgendered Montanans to change their sex listed on their birth certificates. The Department of Public Health and Human Services had proposed letting transgender people update their birth certificates with a form showing they've undergone a gender transition. Currently, the process requires a court order. Supporters say the proposed rule is a policy change that the legislature should have voted on, and it was expensive to implement. But opponents say the potential fiscal impacts here are not that serious.
Policy was made at an agency level, looking only on itself inward, saying it's not going to cost me much to change this on a birth certificate. I respect that and acknowledge their expertise in that area for that division. But they do not have the right or the expertise to say it has no economic impact across all the other agencies.
Absolutely nothing in this rule that requires the Department of Motor Vehicles or the hunting license or anybody else to add a new gender category. There's nothing about that at all.
The bill now goes to the House. Despite fire season, road closures, and an early trend to winter weather, Glacier National Park's visitor traffic is continuing on a strong trend this fall, and now we know the park's new annual visitor record will top 3.2 million people. The latest report covering October traffic shows Glacier's visitation was up by more than 11% from the same month last year. More than 84,000 people came through the gates, which is a strong number considering how the Sprague fire had closed access to going to the Sun Road for several weeks. However, Logan Pass and other locations remained popular. In fact, traffic on the east side of the park was especially robust, with Two Medicine, Many Glacier, and St. Mary seeing twice as many visitors as last year. The totals also pushed Glacier's annual visitation mark, with a chance the new record could break 3.3 million people. Also, Montana Senator Steve Daines is asking the U.S. Park Service to extend the public comment period for a proposed rate hike for park entrance fees. This plan would double the current fee to $70 during peak tourist months if the proposal passes, and it does include Glacier and Yellowstone parks. Daines says 30 days is not a long enough window for people to comment. The deadline is on Thanksgiving. Missoula's newest elementary school could be named not by location, but to honor a legendary congresswoman. The new replacement for Cold Springs Elementary is taking shape next to Maloney Ranch off Lower Miller Creek Road, with plans to have the new school operational next August. But ever since it was proposed, there's been some question as to what the new school would be named. It is a replacement for Cold Springs, but geographically it's separated by a couple of miles from the old location. So Missoula County Public Schools considered 40 names, submitted to a special committee, and then pared those down to 5 finalists with surveys sent out to Cold Springs households. And at the top of the list is Jeanette Rankin Elementary School, honoring the Missoula native who was the first woman to hold federal office in the U.S. and is still the only congresswoman elected from Montana. A close second is Maloney Ranch Elementary School, followed by Miller Creek Elementary, Mountain View Elementary, and Three Rivers Elementary School. The school board reviewed those suggestions last night and expects to make a final selection on November 28th. And if the Missoula school is named Jeanette Rankin, it won't be the only one in western Montana. The Kalispell School Board voted last night to name that district's new school, being built on Airport Road after the congresswoman. Well, the Guerrilla Turkey Drive continues to be the major source of Thanksgiving turkeys to help the hungry here in west central Montana. And this year, with many communities still feeling financial impacts of a long fire season, the donations are needed more than ever. For the 23rd year, the radio stations of Cherry Creek Media are teaming up with listeners to collect turkeys and cash, directly helping food banks in Darby, Hamilton, Stevensville, Missoula, and Superior with their Thanksgiving food baskets. And the demand is great. It's estimated 780 turkeys are needed to help everyone this year. And of course, the DJs are having some fun along the way. I made the mistake a couple of years ago suggesting taking gravy shots as a challenge to boost donations. And while Chris and Brian over at Z100 still aren't sure about hitting the sauce again this year, Eagle Country's Tom Anthony has challenged them again and promised he'll do gravy shots Friday here on Montana This Morning on KPAX if 400 turkeys are donated. Now, the turkeys can be dropped off at the Cherry Creek Studios at 1600 North Avenue through Friday afternoon. And I have to say, Jill, that I think I'm going to up the ante. I think if it goes to 500 turkeys, I'll take a gravy shot on Friday morning. Okay, is it at least warm?
Well, we've debated that. Some of us have different tastes. The consensus is you do warm it up a little bit.
Otherwise, it's just a glob.
Oh, I'll
right?
tell you, cold gravy at 6 o'clock in the morning, that's nowhere to go. So.
That's dedication to helping people out
well,
this
that's
holiday
what it's
season.
All about. It's about helping the folks.
It is. Well, still ahead on KPAX, Aaron says we could see some unsettled weather, even some snow in the mountains to end the work week. Those details next.
And the Capitol Tree Tour makes a stop in Missoula.